that have environmental consequences, it's going to be up to you to bring those consequences up and say something. And we did that. The first thing we did, the first action item we took, which we haven't completed yet, was we told the Board of Supervisors regarding wetlands and what the current thinking was about how to classify wetlands and that kind of thing. Well, we haven't done it, and I kind of let it drift, but we need to take that on. Somebody needs to take that on and start it, and we can all add little pieces to it. But I think we have to decide, there's a time frame for that, and decide to do it. I am very taken by all of Mitch's concerns and suggestions. I think they're excellent. As I said, I knew what our responsibilities were, or I wouldn't have signed up to this. And I think we have to now, we kind of know the territory. We have a wonderful guidance from Alex. And we have a great committee. I think everybody brings to this committee a perspective that is needed when you think about the environment. So that's enough from me. But I want that to be kind of our guiding principle, that we are a committee and we have to learn to work together, and we have to learn to set our objectives and what we want our output to be. And I'm so glad that the idea of being kind of a watchdog came up, because I hadn't really thought about that, but that is true. Okay, so having said that, you have the minutes. Does anybody do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'd like to discuss them.
All right, but don't we have to have the motion first?
Yes, motion second first.
The motion is, you made the motion?
Sure.
Second? Okay, discussion.
Well, one of the things I want to talk about as part of the minutes is there are two issues that we have discussed together that I thought were going to be routine parts of the agenda. One was the status of the action items, which to me is part of the discussion of the minutes. And then the second one is any feedback from the supervisors. And since neither of those are specific items on the agenda, I'm not sure whether we talk about them.
Not this time, but they were the last time we got feedback from Alex on the two subjects that we had interacted with the supervisors.
Well, we have items this time where we have made recommendations, I think. And so, you know, it shouldn't take up a lot of time, just.
Right, no, and I think we all thought that was happening, because I did notice that there was a section on that, but go ahead, please.
I mean, that's my point. I mean, if those types of items aren't on the agenda, then they can easily be bypassed. Or somebody has to stop and say, what about these items?
We all got a email from Alex that showed what his action items were and where they were.
Right.
Should that be formally part of the agenda?
Well, from my standpoint, just brief comments on this is done, this letter was written. Like one of the things in the agenda was a recommendation on lighting that Alex was going to write a letter for. I don't know if that was done or not, because I never saw a letter on the recommendation for lighting. And then that is one of the things that I'd like to know what's happened with the supervisors from that. I mean, that's just one little example.
So I can address that. One agenda item is supposed to be on here. And it might have been an oversight in this particular agenda where the update from the supervisors wasn't on there. That's a point well taken. And I agree completely. I do have a list of the action items. I'd be happy to just give an overview later on in the meeting. I'd like to try to get through as much of this as possible, and I can bring it up maybe on somewhere here, but I do have an update on that.
Maybe as a simplification.
Supervisor.
Yes.
What's your thing up?
Oh, is that what we're doing? As a simplification, maybe just always under old business, the first item can be, update on last month's action steps.
Yeah.
Especially since this group meets monthly and not every, couple weeks, it's nice to see where things have gone. And that way, by having it on the agenda as well, you can talk as much as you want about it. Or I don't know if you're limited to that. No, we're not. That's just the supervisors. Supervisors can't talk about anything unless it's on the agenda. Is that the same here?
Pretty much.
Oh, okay.
Can I ask a question about that?
Derek,
How do we discuss things outside this meeting? Because all of the issues that come up can't be addressed at this meeting, or we'll be here much longer than any of us want to be here.
So the reason why, the sunshine law is an issue for supervisors, is there's only 3 of them. So as long as you're not a quorum, you can meet as much and talk about it as much as you want.
So if I write an email and I make a suggestion, it's perfectly okay if somebody responds to me.
So
You're not supposed to deliberate,
all right,
you
so,
can gather information. Are we to the sunshine law as well, the committee? Okay.
yeah, so as long as less than 4 of you discuss things, then technically it's not a quorum, but it's generally not well advised to, because that's basically, as long as there's three or less of you, then you can have phone calls. I would not recommend emails for a lot of reasons. If you want to have conversations, I would recommend phone calls. Because if you send an email to everybody and then you do not want to get into deliberations on email, reply to all sorts of situations. That would be I would seriously advise against the email method.
I've been cautioned several times about
Yeah.
that
That's
whole
just my,
subject.
that's just my feedback for what it's worth.
Yeah, email is great for sharing information, sharing stuff. You can't even share, you technically can share your thoughts, but you can't have someone say, well, I disagree with that, because now you're deliberating. Because if it's all, yeah, you're not supposed to, because that is supposed to be done in front of public.
Well, I don't know whether this is correct or not, but, if you send an email and say, we need to discuss this, here are the issues we need to discuss as a group, I think that's probably okay from what I know of previous Sunshine Act responsibilities.
I mean, we'd probably be okay, we'll add this to the agenda,
Yes,
period,
yes.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, like for example, there was an email sent with a list of documents to be discussed, like provide info, but not expect a discussion to follow. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's my feeling. It's like, oh, here are some materials for this upcoming agenda item. Distributed to all, Alex and Pat, can you discuss or something like that might be more appropriate than, here are some thoughts that I have. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree? You know what I mean? So you have to be email is very useful, like, but honestly, I feel like it might be time to call a vote on the minutes of that.
it might be what?
It might be time to call a vote. That'd be my
On
recommendation.
minutes.
Okay,
We're still talking about minutes.
wait, I want to be sure that, you got to say all the things you wanted to say, sir.
Well, I'm still not sure how we communicate outside
Well, let's bring
this.
that up under
out
new
this
business,
meeting.
or old business, okay? Okay,
And I have one question about items that are tabled. We tabled a discussion last meeting. How do those things get brought back up and discussed? Do we keep a list of items that have been tabled?
we should have an agenda item that says table discussion, tabled issues that should be on the agenda. And they should just be listed, and then no action is taken, continue to table or whatever.
Okay.
Or the committee needs to decide if, something's been tabled, if they wanna go at it again. Because that's another opportunity. If it's been tabled and it hasn't been acted upon until the next meeting, then the question could be, should it continue to be tabled? ask the committee what their preference is going to be.
Is there a Robert's Rule of Order considering untabling, if there is such a term?
Well, there is a Robert's Rule of Order that says table discussions, table areas should be rediscussed or either retabled or taken off. There is that. Guidance.
I'm gonna try to help in this too. Is this advertised? This isn't advertised, the agenda,
The agenda is posted 24 hours in advance.
but it doesn't have to be advertised.
The only thing that's to be advertised is the existence of the meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
Guess what?
The
Alex?
existence of the meeting. I didn't think that this had to be advertised. So what that does mean then is that, the way to address Mitch's concern is if you get the agenda out early enough to everyone, and if anyone's like, we tabled this last time, I really want to talk about it, and it's not on the agenda, I'm surprised, they can write to Pat and say, can you please add this to the agenda? And Pat decides if it goes on the agenda or not. That's what I recommend.
That came up when we were talking about the comprehensive plan. And the minutes came out. As soon as they came out, I responded to it and I said, I thought we were gonna talk about the comprehensive plan. And the feedback from Julie, I believe it was through you, Alex, was that you couldn't add something to the agenda because it hadn't been published.
So I would just remind the council that the agreement was that if anybody wants something on the agenda, please email me and Pat. Me and Pat get together either via phone or we get together in person. We decide to set the agenda in advance. Once me and Pat meet, we decide what's gonna be on the agenda, then it goes out to everybody. You know, so I would recommend not emailing all, email me and Pat, say, hey, I want these things on the agenda. Then me and Pat will discuss and then we'll make a decision.
I'm unclear, Alex, if in fact you send the agenda out and there are comments from the committee, how, can they make comments back to us? That you left something off or?
That is entire. That was the protocol that we had agreed on. Typically, I will put a draft agenda together. I will send it to Pat and say, here's my draft. Can you please review it? Let's get together and discuss what's gonna be on the agenda.
I know what we do.
Right. And so I'm just being transparent with everyone how our process goes here. So, you know, if all of you, and we typically do that a week before the actual, so this agenda went out on Friday. Me and Pat got together, I think it was like Thursday or Friday the week before. So as long as you get requested agenda items to us, you know, within 3 weeks of this meeting, then I create a running list of things on my end and I compile them and send them to me, I'll put them on the agenda, and then me and Pat will get together and make a final decision. You know, for example, this meeting has a lot of agenda items. And so certain ones didn't make the cut because we have to respect everybody's time here. As is becoming increasingly evident from this discussion, we might not get to everything on the agenda as it is. So if we start stacking this agenda with more and more things, we might be, and we have to just make a judgment call as to what is really important to discuss, to be perfectly frank. That's my feeling on it.
Okay, so any more discussion of the minutes? Because I think anything from this end? Okay, all in favor? That we approve the minutes as written?
I'll abstain, I wasn't here.
Okay, and one abstention. Okay, now going to the next agenda item. I think it's you, Alex, right? No, I'm supposed to confirm the meeting dates of November and December. Is everybody okay with that? I think we discussed this and decided last week that this was okay with everyone, right?
Yeah, these are just.
It was as good as we could do. Okay, so do I hear, do we need to approve that? Alex?
So just announcements.
Okay.
Will you send out invitations for those days?
Yeah, we are working on advertising them. I'll confirm with Julia and then I'll update everything.
Alex, the next two are yours.
Yeah, I just want to make an announcement to the council that we actually have an upcoming next month's meeting here, which is still going to be on a Tuesday. E-Code has offered to give us a live presentation on how to review the ordinances. And so there's been a lot of questions and comments and lengthy discussions about ordinances and how to utilize. So we are we will be providing you and anyone from the public who wants to come to learn how to use E-code to search the ordinances, because the ordinances govern the community, and so it's really critical. So please attend next month's meeting.
That's the 15th of October.
Mhm.
Thank you.
That's pretty much it.
Alec, will there be minutes of this? And I'm not going to be at the next meeting, I want everybody to know that.
Oh, that's a good point.
I'm cruising on that.
You're,
The Queen Mary.
there will be a YouTube video that I can send
Okay,
you so
great.
that you can watch the whole thing.
Great. And will everyone else plan on being here then? I think that's a really important, personally, important thing for us.
I'm sorry.
What is
October fifteenth, at the time of day, or any more?
Oh, do we know what time?
7 o'clock, it's the same meeting, so.
It'll be him.
Here,
It'll be-
7 p.m. on the 15th, okay.
Okay, Alec, next.
The other
I have to look.
exciting,
I think so.
the other exciting meeting that you might want to consider attending is the sign ordinance discussion, which is going to be Thursday, October 17th at 7 p.m. That is a board supervisor and planning meeting. But the sign ordinance does have some relationship to the Environmental Advisory Council. So if you're interested in learning about that potential policy, I would recommend attending as members of the public. So that's Thursday, October 17th at 7 p.m. in this room.
Next,
And then the other thing is I just wanted to announce that Smithfield Township will be having the Trunk or Treat and Fall Fest to be held October 26th, which is a Saturday from 1 to 4 p.m. out in the parking lot here. And
is this a tradition?
this is somewhat. And so if anyone here from the council would like to host the trunk, it's completely free. There's gonna be free food. There will be pumpkin painting. There will be free food. And if you would like to bring your car and just open the trunk with some, all we ask is you have enough candy to hand out to like 50 kids. And if you have your own businesses or your own hobbies or your own professions or anything that you'd like to try to promote, you are welcome to do that. You just have to fill out the sign up sheet on the website.
Fun.
And if anyone from the council here wants to represent the council and do an EAC trunk, I would encourage that as well. To talk a little bit about what the Environmental Advisory Council does. You can hand out, I don't know, environmentally sensitive area
We
maps.
could, yeah, we could give the maps. That we don't really understand. Okay, yeah, that's very good. Any comments on any of those things? I presume not.
Just a comment on the October 17th. That's a change from the minutes that was sent out, right?
That was the, yeah, it was, it was.
That's why I was confused, because I had the 26th that he had.
Okay, now we're gonna go to old business, which I hope we can clarify somewhat from what we actually did last time, and I'm counting on Brett and Alex to clarify it for us. Okay, report. Captains. Now, that's not allowed, that's not part of the.
We talked about having the first item under old business being a review of the status of the action items.
Let's move forward.
Okay,
Then, well, when did we discuss those as part of this meeting?
I would be happy to give an update on that at some point.
well, let's go into this first and then do the update of the action items at the end of all business, okay?
That sounds good, Pat.
Okay, because there might be some action items that relate
Like,
to
right?
some of these, okay? Is that okay with you?
Oh, it's fine.
I figured out how to download the open space inventory, and I read it over. And I contacted, well, obviously I spoke with Gary. I contacted LTS about the Buttermilk Falls property, and then it's not their property. I've also reached out to, have yet to get a response from Cooch, the jump, the property owner who came in. Schuschman. Regarding the Pizzeria, corner of Shawnee Road and, 219, asking if they have any plans for the Buttermilk Falls area, and this indicated that the ideas of the AT, the township would love to be able to preserve that as an example of natural beauty. And
Could I just stop you a minute? So could you just tell us what your methodology has been and how you're approaching this?
well, I generally pick up the phone or email or both, and listen to, like, for instance, with Buttermilk Falls. Robert, you suggested that there would be another explore other items than buying that place, so there are other groups or something that might be able to secure the place, with the township may or not want to buy it. I'm not sure, I can't quote it.
Oh, no, I just said one of the things from conversations I've had with, land trusts and that sort of thing, that even if there's land that this committee identifies as wanting to procure, and there might be finances available, funding available, all that doesn't mean that it has to be township that owns it. That's all I'm saying, is that, if there's a situation where there was an uproar from township residents because they didn't think the township could manage it properly, there could be a world where a land trust owns it instead. Just highlighting that as a potential option as you go through these things. You still need to find financing. Land trust isn't gonna just necessarily have money for you, but that's always a route you can go. That's all I was.
Good insight, thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just going over the list, and I haven't spoken with Ron about it yet. We're not really.
No, I used to be Ron, but lately I've been Ken, still Ken.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just Ken.
you're still Ken.
Yeah.
I'll switch you from Ron completely, I promise. Ken and I haven't spoken about this,
Oh, yeah.
and I'll be digging down into it more specifically as this information is it's current, but it's a lot of it's not current.
So the idea is to just update that particular list
Yeah,
and then decide what the next,
well, I would say update and re-verify.
okay,
As I remember it, the property is owned by the same folks who own, Odd that retail store, cheap junk. So, and whether or not, we haven't contacted that person who owns that property or whoever's brokering for him. And that would be the only way that I know that we would actually get a handle on what the plan for that property is. If there is one, and they may be just sitting on that property forever for all we know. But that's the gist I got from the SER broker I spoke to.
Right. And
Weeks ago.
The brokers indicated to me, having spoken with this, that they would be open to any offers. They were kind of looking at the property. I wasn't even sure they owned it. They were a prospective buyer. So it's a little vague. I'm not sure.
Well, I think what I'll have to do, I think is, maybe I could get in touch with that guy I talked to at SER again, and to see if he knows any more about that property.
Yeah.
So I talked to him in person, he was very nice, gave me a lot of materials.
so you'll report back to us about that.
Yeah, I'm assuming I can get to and talk to that guy fairly soon. I'll make an effort to do that.
It's the Schickmans, I know the Schickmans fairly well, Paul and Judy, it could be their son, I can ask them if they own that property. But ideally what we're doing is James can probably go online and find out who owns it without making.
Which property?
You're talking about Bushka Falls, right?
Yeah, it's in here.
Or the pizzeria, you're talking about now?
It's in here.
It's the same there.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have them there.
Thank you.
Okay, so you have,
Linda owns it.
they only own this piece here. This is Johnny Development here. Okay.
They own the old township building. The yellow building. Sorry.
Not anymore.
Wyndham.
Pretty sure that's,
But no.
it's, the guys at Pocono,
Yeah, that one didn't include
Pocono
it.
Brewery, Pocono Brewing, Pocono Beer.
Oh, okay.
Somebody cuts the grass right on that corner that's exposed on 209, so that property, somebody's maintaining a little corner of it. But behind where they maintain it, that's where it's just wood and you can't see the balls at all. And I think that's really the heart of the property we would like to see go back to the public.
The property that owns the pizzeria that came up with the planning commission.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, so that's judgment, right? Because he owns that one, a small part, that, there's two parts of Buttermilk Falls. And is it the owner of where that old inn is at? And, right by Little Marshall's Creek, that little old thing that they call the, bed and breakfast. They renovated that across the street from, Wyndham.
It's a private residence.
Yes, it's a private residence.
Yeah.
Okay, so they own that property and piece of that Buttermilk Falls. According
The
to the,
people who own that property,
right, the people who own the private residence,
yeah.
okay, that's on the right-hand side going to
I-
Buttermilk Falls.
yeah.
They also own a piece of Buttermilk Falls.
So can I make a recommendation that James luckily has access to this software and have him go through, if he is willing, or if someone is willing, a list of properties, just to update who the owners are. Because then what you do is instead of making cold calls to these people, scaring them off, you find someone that knows
You
them
write them a nice,
and can reach out and say, hey, you know, EAC got in touch with me, are you selling, you know, have a nice, warm conversation, because in some ways you're looking at these as sort of donations, they're not donations, they're gonna be reimbursed for their fair market value as per how they're assessed, but, you know, ultimately they can probably get more.
can I make a suggestion? About that? You're better off sending them because it's more personal, you send them a note. Your handwritten note. Instead of something that's manufactured, you have to actually write to someone and say, hey, we're considering, if you're considering selling your property, or you'd like to, pass it on to make sure that it is forever, not to be used, then we can, the township is willing to reimburse you.
Well, I think we have a motion on the table that, didn't we? Didn't you say I make a motion? No, we didn't, so sorry. Didn't mean to put words in your mouth.
No.
But the point would be, when I hear it being discussed, is that we should, the supervisor has suggested that we would want to get in touch through knowing who the owners
That's
are.
easy, I can do that.
Yeah, if you can find out who the.
Just give me a list of what you
The
need.
list is there, it's in the, did you start share with everybody, right?
Yeah.
Go through the list,
It's in your-
find, look up every parcel and
Somewhere.
that's helpful. And then you can also look to see if it's even up for sale, right? Cause if it's for sale, that's extra useful information.
Well, the property with a pizzeria, they have an option to buy, to build was gonna be a 2-story, then it turned to be a 1-story, strip mall. So,
Well, can I comment? I wanna have an opportunity to comment on what you just said. So that's like really important information you just said, because at literally last week's planning commission, the owners of this very property that we've been discussing for like the last 5 minutes came to the township and it submitted a sketch plan. Now, does everyone know what a sketch plan is and how it differentiates from a land development plan?
Do you?
Do you really?
Okay, well, quickly.
A sketch plan is basically just an option that a landowner has to present a concept to the municipality to try to get some engineering feedback on, you know, what they might expect from, if they were to submit a full land development plan. And I hope that's kind of a secret.
Well,
And so it's not, so sometimes there's a misconception of, oh, wow, look what they're gonna do. No, this is, it is not a commit, it is literally just, this is something, an option in your ordinance that a landowner has. They were exploring a possibility, and that very property with Buttermilk Falls was discussed at the last meeting, and there is a concept that's been discussed with regards to potentially doing something with it. And so I think that this is a good discussion to have because it is very much in the sphere of the township at the moment. And the planning commission asked them to submit a land development plan. And so I think the township can likely anticipate a formal submission of a land development plan for that property. And so the council might want to make sure they attend those meetings and pay close attention. And I seem to understand that there's a person with what's known as an option on that property. So you have the owner of the property and somebody with an option. I believe they were sitting in the audience. And so there are parties involved here, and so it's complicated, but that property is being discussed now.
Okay, this is, the chairman asking for a clarification here, of what we're trying to do. Are we now, we're discussing the Buttermilk Falls point. Do we want to come to some conclusion about the Buttermilk Falls?
What's going on?
Mhm.
That's it. We need to find out what's happening with the properties first before we can make a suggestion or. Yeah, it's not just knowing, we have to know interest. If there's no interest, then there's nothing we can do.
Okay, so I think though that you're saying that this is conceptually an approach to all of these, that we need to know more and, mention that, we need to know more about each one of the properties, who owns them, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I honestly think going around this table talking about what might be, what might not be is always
doesn't help
everybody's
us.
time. What you should be doing is going through, writing who the owners are for every one of these properties, writing down who might have an option, and then ideally going through like, who knows these people? Does anyone know them? I don't know, put that in another list, and then seeing if those people will approach them to just get information. Are you looking to hold it forever? Are you looking to sell it? Are you looking, and then, cause then 95% of them are gonna be irrelevant. You're not gonna be able to touch them, never gonna wanna sell to you. So you don't go after something just cause you want it.
Okay.
Cause that's not what this group does. We're not gonna take
Agreement.
land.
I just need us to decide if we need to have a motion to that effect and all agree to it, or, do we just leave it hanging? Mitch?
What I would like to add, when we talked about this property last month. It's
Remember now, I've got us talking about the approach to all the properties. I want us to stay on
And
that
if you
first.
want to stay on the approach to all the properties, I would ask, what does this committee think of my recommendations that I sent out right after the last meeting?
Well, I'm not exactly sure what recommendations are pertinent to this discussion.
Well, I think they're very pertinent to this discussion.
How about
You're
somebody,
talking
you said, tell us what your recommendations are.
about, I will. When you're talking about how you prioritize effort. Now this Buttermilk Falls property seems to be very complex because you've got a whole series of multiple owners. My suggestion was, and it said for the open space committee, index committee, I would suggest for our next meeting that Ken and Brett propose criteria that will be used to prioritize open space parcels. A simple prioritization system of what's most desirable, least desirable would be all we would need. There would be key criteria like, does the property have water on it? That would be a high priority item. What is the east?
Okay, I hear what you're saying.
Let me finish, because I'm not sure everybody read this, because there was absolutely no response to this email.
I responded. Today, I just got it, actually.
And point of
Well, I
order,
sent it out
point of
on
order is, we
August
shouldn't be
21st.
responding to those.
Pardon me?
Yeah,
And point of order is that nobody should be responding to those. emails.
Well, that's why I was asking the
Okay.
question about the sunshine.
I'm gonna come back now and be a chairperson. I think that what's on the table now is discussion of identifying the properties and the ownership. And I think we've all agreed, and our good friend here has agreed to do that research for us. That's the first step, right? And then agreeing with you, Mitch, there has to be some process to determine what we do after we know who's there. And I think the idea is to also identify who the owners are, and if anybody knows them, you know, if there's any kind of a way to talk to those people in addition to the note that you suggested, which I think makes sense. Is that agreeable? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think that's great. Just to Mitch's point, I think you're right, Mitch. I think the thing is, a lot of this work was already done before, as we know, and they came up with this list already. I think there's some level of, let's go with the list that we have based on what was done before, to update it based on ownership, interest in selling, all that sort of stuff. But I agree with you that if you wanna add to this list, should be some form of criteria to add to it.
Well, what I was suggesting is that in looking at this list, which is this long, right? How do you prioritize where we focus our effort? And to prioritize where we focus our effort, you have to know what's the easiest.
What I'm trying to
access.
tell you is, no, you don't, because you're gonna go through and you're gonna figure out that 80% of these people are never gonna. So you don't have to, who cares if you want it or not? That's what I'm trying to say. That I think the number one thing is, is there any interest in it at all in selling and getting rid of it? Because if there's not, you're wasting your time.
So your opinion is the primary criteria is somebody willing to sell?
It's not, it is on these that that the group already went through and identified as somewhat of a priority for the township. And that's why I said, if you're adding to this list, yes, you need to prioritize to make sure you're adding it to, because it has some sort of environmental value, right? So yeah, I'm agreeing with you for new
I'm
properties.
just not sure this group really knows what the most important properties are.
You don't know.
They're saying they're all important.
They're all have been identified as relevant, so now the step is to figure out if you can use them or not.
Well, Mitch, you suggested that we have subcommittees, and we do have two people that are working on this.
Right.
And I think they've heard what you have had to say, and that, I think the direction is that we find out the status of these properties, and then, go from there. And I don't think anybody is opposed to having some criteria for determining what the priorities should be of whether we go after these. Well, one, as has been pointed out, the first priority is, are they even interested in getting rid of it? So I don't want to cut off the discussion, but I want to be sure that we've come to a conclusion and that we move on. James?
Okay. Simple. I'll take that list, I'll look at everything. Okay? We send out a note, if there's any interest, that's our priority. If we don't get any interest, then we have none. So we first have to find out who they are, find out what the interest, if there's any interest, and then we can get into that. But right now, we just want to find out who they belong to, and that's it.
That's it, right, and I just want to.
That's
Your
it.
job is not now to go out and call.
No.
Don't do that.
Exactly.
Okay, so find out who they are and put it in another column, go to an Excel, the next column, if there's any options in there, if someone else has an interest in the property. And
Okay.
I think if you come back with that, we can look at it, or ahead of time, look at it, include it in the agenda, and maybe we'll come in here and they'll be like, oh, I know him, Eric knows him, I know him, and then we can go out and ask some nice phone calls, without even having to write a letter, because they're.
Not a letter, letters are impersonal.
Correct, agreed.
Okay,
I don't think we need a motion, or he's just gonna do it.
we're, okay,
That's it.
I just want to be sure we have agreement.
It's agreed.
Okay, everybody agrees
It's done.
that that's our next step. And
Let it
Eric,
be written.
and You,
Let it be done.
since you're gotta do it, and you, and our.
So is that agreement with what Michael said, to put a column on the Excel spreadsheet and
You
track?
let it be written, so let it be done.
Yes, it is.
The other thing I would comment on is let's take advantage of the subcommittee. Last month was just trying to get the infrastructure in place. Last month was Alex, get the list together, send it out to everybody. Brett, James Redder, he sent out some properties to add to the list. I also got another property from a council member. So government moves slow. It's not gonna happen immediately. I hope this coming month we can meet as a subcommittee and continue this discussion there, and then the committee can come back here and report back. And I would also, so that's the only other thing I wanted to say. We haven't been on.
And I have one more thing to say too. I do recommend Mitch put very succinctly, maybe if there's a few items you want, when you're at, if somebody ever says, I want to add this property to the list. And you can go through your list to say, does it meet these criteria? Yes, we can add to the list.
I think that's a great suggestion, but Mitch, if you're willing to do that,
To
to,
add properties?
No,
no,
to make
to
your,
make a,
the criteria by which someone adds a property. to.
I suggested that.
Yeah, I'm just saying, put it very
Put it-
succinctly
yeah.
and bring it to the next meeting.
Sure.
Okay, and send it to the sub.
we're moving along, Mitch, on your device, so I want you to know that. It's just,
I get it.
All right.
okay, now,
Very quick question.
yes, and I have another, I haven't called on her yet, could I? She had her hand down.
No, I was gonna talk about the planning commission meeting where the pizza place was brought up and they had a sketch.
Do you still want to say anything?
No, because Alex,
Okay, thanks. So, yes, ma'am, Chris.
Is the list available? I didn't know, I didn't get a chance to look on the website to see if it was posted on the
It's a
website.
public document. I can send it along to you. I don't think, unless you guys, I don't think that's an issue. It's literally just an Excel sheet. So
Right.
I wouldn't post it because it
Yeah.
actually is, you're not required to post it because if the
Right.
township's ever interested in procuring anything, you don't wanna, you're allowed to hold that back because otherwise you're letting people know you're giving up your hand, right? In any sort of procurement, you do not have to post anything.
I'll talk to the township about providing that. I'll talk to the
I mean,
township.
you can share it with certain people, especially if they're gonna be helpful, but I'm not saying don't post, I'm just saying don't post it on the website.
Yeah, this,
Cause then guess what happens? All the price of everything goes through the roof.
Brett?
It is certainly a point well taken, and I agree.
Alex?
there are also,
Brett,
there are also comments on here which are not public comments.
Right.
They're not for the public.
Right.
confidential, confidentiality.
I'll discuss it with the township
Alex.
and,
Yes.
Can I get a copy of that list before I go? So,
This is you are.
I don't know where I put, yeah,
Oh.
it's one of my packets. I don't know what that is.
It's, Alex sent the link out, actually.
yeah, and I feel
Okay,
strongly
it's
the
in the
subcommittee
email.
will meet this coming month over the next 30 days, and we will continue this discussion. And if you have any feedback for the committee, please send them to me at minimum, please. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to call it into that discussion. Then everybody, the group, okay. The next thing is, we were supposed to come up with, each of us, a list of environmental problems. I can only come up with one, and that's that we don't have a mechanism, and you've mentioned this a dozen times. We don't have a mechanism to find out from the public what they consider to be environmental problems. That was the only thing, and we have created a questionnaire, but I hear that we're not gonna be allowed to do that, but I wanna have Eric comment. But that's my only one on
That's
my
later
list.
on the agenda, right?
Yeah, so everyone else gets an opportunity to say what their, and not an opportunity, please tell us what you think are environmental problems. I'm gonna start with you, Mr. Sir, with the orange shirt on.
I mean, I have very little experience of being out in Smithfield Township, looking at waterways and this, that, and the other thing. So I mean, I feel very ill-equipped to recommend five things. My view of environmental is broader than just water quality, okay? I think the way our township appears to the public is extremely important. And so my items are appearance related. And they're related, first of all, to junk properties. People who clearly violate ordinances. And I mean, I could name a couple, I'm concerned about signs, which is being addressed. I'm concerned about lighting, which is being addressed. I think they're pretty comfortable with the lighting. I'm also concerned with, people who were on the planning commission will know this, when we passed the ordinance on, renewable energy. And included in that, allowing people to put up, solar panels and cover an acre of land or some quantity of land with solar panels. I'm very much against that. I think that is bad for the township.
Exclusively for their own use on the property,
Right, exactly.
otherwise, so goes.
And you have a good example of that, and very small, of my good friend David Strong has a small solar panel. I don't know how big it is, 100 feet by 100 feet. And it's, you can view it right off of 209. I think that represents the township badly.
That's good, 100 feet by 100 feet.
I'm sorry?
I've seen it on 209, off of 209.
Right. So I
100
mean,
feet by 100 feet.
my items are, how does our township appear to the public and to the people that live here? And that's why signage is so important.
Yeah.
I mean, there are townships and there are cities that have signage that can only be so high, can only
You
be
should
so big.
you should review the draft ordinance.
Right.
I understand that.
So those are my.
It's on the website, you can download it. It's on the Smithfield Township website, the draft is there now.
It's
So
been
draft,
discussed. We got a copy of the draft, yeah,
Right.
that's being taken care of,
Well,
on the list.
So those are my suggestions.
That's a big one.
Very good, thank you
And
very much.
I have a suggestion, because this one is tied,
Okay, now, are you gonna take your turn now?
can I?
Yeah, you can do your 5, you want to.
I can do it in 5,
Okay.
okay,
5 items, not 5 minutes, let's go.
glyphosate. Okay, AKA Roundup,
What? Roundup?
AKA Roundup. Glyphosate,
Oh,
it's a weed killer,
Oh.
okay, it's very pervasive.
We'll probably have some on our.
Okay, you probably, yeah, if you have it, you should get rid of it. There's a $20 billion settlement. Because
With the company, who's the company?
it was Monsanto,
Monsanto.
okay, so. They owned the patent for years, and now it's out there and it's being produced all over the place. But that's not the issue. The issue is that this sinks into the soil and it's carried into the waterways, and they know for sure that it is harmful to aquatic life. And they know it damages eyes.
Damages what?
Eyesight.
Oh.
Okay, in 2017, they come up that it does cause eye damage, but they're all in denial about whether it causes cancer or not. But there's a $20 billion settlement because of, if anybody has used glyphosate, AKA Roundup, they're able to ask or to be part of that settlement. But since we're discussing the quality of water, which is my pet peeve, okay? I see that glyphosate is a big issue, because I'm pretty sure nobody wants to drink any of that. And it's a desiccant, that means it's gonna dry you out.
By the way, there's no,
Okay.
since 2023, there's no more glyphosate in Roundup that is sold commercially.
There's no
You can
more.
buy it on Amazon.
Say it's not around.
Oh, okay, James.
It's only,
There we go.
So, glyphosate, The other, didn't you mention the forever chemicals in the water as well?
Correct. The other
The
issue,
PFAS,
yeah,
you know that you may find it interesting that sewage treatment plants are required to test for that.
right, that, I brought that up because it's,
Yeah.
they weren't testing for that. And then, I guess that when we would discuss it, about a month later, the EPA mandated that all water needs to be tested for forever chemicals, because those things don't disappear.
Yeah.
And it's causing, there's a lot of concern about carcinogens, causing all kinds of problems, health problems.
Have you done yours? You got more?
I think that's a handful.
enough.
I think that's something that if it's around, we need to make sure it's not in our inventory in our township. Anywhere where people are, because we're increasing our residential, right? We're increasing, we want to bring in more homes. I'm trying to make room for more homes and build more homes.
Well, just a point of order, I think that what we do with these lists is another subject. I mean, what our action will be with these items. So you had a comment?
Well, my only comment is just to facilitate this discussion. If we each just list our items and explain briefly why we think it's important, then we can have a long list and then we can talk about prioritizing
Great.
those items.
Good suggestion.
But if we get into a discussion on each and every item, then
I agree.
we get here.
Absolutely correct.
I use my 5 minutes.
Okay.
Next.
You and Doug?
My concept of environment is wide and narrow. Number one, single passenger transportation overcrowding roads. We have a lot of traffic and it's all manner of traffic.
And exhaust.
And exhaust, and our roads aren't necessarily safe. And and they don't accommodate a wide variety of transportation. So under that as subtitles, create bike lanes. Township should resist variance requests for sidewalks. I think we need more sidewalks. 3, create walking paths on right of ways where sidewalks are impractical. So pedestrians can get around in this township. Very hard for pedestrians to get around here. And because the roads, so few of our roads have shoulders, we should add signage. Bicycles have right of way signage to shoulderless roads. That's point 1. Point 2, water management ordinance allow developments to inordinately impact the water situation township wide. Point being township wide. Regarding water and new developments and township oversight. We need to take into consideration what effects stormwater overflow will occur downstream from water from developments. And testimony of the gentleman who was here for the meeting, it was an engineer at this last meeting. I forget no. He said he's an engineer, his career is fixing development engineers' mistakes. He's an engineer, he goes in and corrects stuff after developments are built. Point 3, data centers impacts on local communities. I sent an email out to everybody, almost everybody. I think I overlooked you, and I'm sorry. On New York Times article, just for your information, they are we need to really consider whether or not we want to have a data center in our township. Point 4, demonstrate and educate visitors to the natural beauty of our township. And I thought, at Delaware Water Gap, there's a house up there that's in the same architecture as the Castle Inn. It's up behind it on the bluff right above the place. It's a beautiful house. It's a big house. And it's a dump right now. But that, we might want to look at that property for acquisition as a visitor center. There's also view from that bluff, you see the gap, you look up the Delaware, and it's just, I had never seen it before, it just blew me away how beautiful that view is there. And wouldn't you need a tower, just like a deck up there? That's a really choice piece of property.
That's Delaware Water Gap, that's in the borough of Delaware Water Gap,
Right.
that's not Smithfield Township.
But it's in the township though, right?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I'm
Delaware
sorry,
Water Gap.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, the last point.
You know.
And you know, anyway, my last point, protect, restore, improve and maintain. Buttermilk Falls, Sambo Creek, popular Broadhead Creek Beach, which we now have as an access area that we charge for access to. We could probably improve that, make it a destination. I know they can't swim in the water, but it's still a hang. Another point is, I'm sorry, still worried again. And an additional river recreational area. A landing, something like parties or shopping. It used to be Parties Beach, what's it called? Sorry.
It's Smithfield.
Smithfield Beach, thank you. Another similar facility in the Shawnee Menacing area of the river, so more people can get to the river in an organized fashion. And that's kind of this thing.
Isn't that something you have on the?
The kayak one?
Yeah,
I had talked to the supervisors about, there's a lot of funding available, public money that wouldn't cost the township very much that they could tap into for a potential kayak launch.
So,
That's
to
discussed.
be clear, that whole park, there is funding right now that has been secured around doing a plan for what would be great for that park, and there has been one meeting so far, there is more scheduled. So as it relates to recreation, I would just maybe say that that is being done elsewhere as opposed to this group, which is more environment. I mean, I'm all for the recreation part, but there is planning going on related to the park. And I will say to Alex's point as well, I think the supervisors heard that, but also sort of said, we don't know whether we even want something like that. We need to do planning to just hear from the community, hear from the neighbors, what they want from that park, in that park. And those conversations are ongoing and the input is being sought from the community, so.
very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next,
Yeah, I haven't been here in 2 months, so, I put this together just as far as like livable spaces that are considered sustainable, small towns in the country. Ithaca was the one that came to mind just because I was there recently, doing the cannabis stuff, but, livable places that meet the diverse needs of the community, both now and in the future, is kind of the definition of a sustainable small town. Self-sufficient in energy. Unfortunately, that's gonna be solar panels. Manages waste to produce energy with sustainable transport, green spaces, and manages, its natural resources correctly, which is everything that we've been talking about. It just kind of says it, succinctly, but, promoting natural landscape, as far as the board is concerned, I kind of foresee us more being in the educational space. So we could educate, because you can't tell anybody what to do, but you can explain to them that potentially Smithfield Township is, looking to be a more sustainable, small township in Pennsylvania, and these are the ways that you could get there. Limiting mowed to grass, so your natural landscapes, educational programs that explain to people why the more you have to mow and the less natural, landscapes you have and flowers, the worse off the environment is. Already what we talked about as far as the sewage and drainage systems and pollution socks on, all of the, runoffs. Because everything that, we know everything's just going into the rivers, which is pretty wild.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yeah.
Just because I think it's really relevant. There's also okay. I just want to make sure this committee is not, if you don't have an action step that you're doing right now, this group is useless, because that's not true. because this group is also about having a. I'm advancing to my point, but it's relevant to what Eric just said, that's why I have to jump in. This group also has a lens, this environmental lens, where everything that is going forward through the supervisors, it's good to have that environmental lens. As an example, I have had people say, you need an ordinance to limit the length of people's lawns. And often given that as examples, saying, I will never do that, I'll never vote in favor of something like that, for a million different reasons. But I've heard with respect to blight, that property is blighted, look at how long the grass is, we should have an ordinance that means they can't do that. I personally will never, buildings are one thing, but I'm not gonna limit like the grass. And it's good to have also another view, which is actually from an environmental standpoint, it's not great to have your lawn at 2 inches all the time. There's an environmental value to having your lawn grow long. So I'm just saying, having a lens and having this group here, so that if an ordinance does show up, oh, look, they're gonna pass an ordinance that forces everyone to keep their grass, below 3 inches. This voice can raise, an opinion on it. I'm sorry, carry on.
No, so within that, the dark sky program, which is something that I think that we all obviously have been talking about here and we all agree with. More and more businesses are popping up that, the light pollution at my farm is probably twice as bad as it was when I moved in 5 years ago. So that's certainly a problem. You can go further down the rabbit hole as far as buildings and billboards and the, vinyl siding versus wood shingles and, on and on and on and on. But there are things to discuss within that. And I would say, none of them are crazy because the more vinyl siding and, nasty asbestos you spray and put on houses, the more you gotta get rid of and the worse it is. But this isn't Russia, and we can't tell people what to do, so we can just talk to them about why they should. Educational programs regarding something I spoke with Alex about, natural versus chemical cleaners used in the home. People believe that when they put something down the drain, it disappears, but it doesn't. This goes into Roundup, this goes in for anything that you use in your sinks and toilets. I believe that education is the best way to, convince people to make the right choice at home. And then, electrical vehicle charging stations and, kind of changing people's minds on solar panels.
I heard you. You said it softly.
No, yeah, but again, this is all, this is all educational, and in my mind, as a board, we're here to educate people and, try and explain why. There are other options out there and potentially they would, make our township a better place to live. Farm to table, Shawnee's doing, farm to table dinners and, as an educational, or an environmental board, an advisory board, we could be working with, the township to have more festivals and markets and maybe allocate places within the township to have those things.
Very good.
Very good, yeah.
Your turn.
Okay. Well, did I prepare a list of specific problems? No, I did not. When I put my brain to that and I think about Smithfield Township, I think there's less about Smithfield than I really know than I do. So that kind of sort of disqualifies me in a way, saying that I know that this is a problem here and that one's there. That's not the way I approach this. What I'm looking at here is the total picture. I'm more in line with what Eric just said, taking a very general approach to what I see as environmental problems. And for me personally, I go back to why, or one of the main reasons I moved here in the first place from a large metropolitan area with boring suburbs and roads everywhere, freeways, and you've mentioned light pollution. There was no way I could look at the sky and, sometimes you just couldn't even see the moon, let alone anything else. So, I'm concerned about the environment in general. And specifically, the the many forms of pollution that I've become aware of around us. And, this is, in the short time I've been on this committee, suddenly my senses are open to sources of pollution. And I've become aware that we're talking about ordinances now about the light pollution, noise pollution. All these things are now on the books right here in Smithfield that help reduce pollution problems, not even to mention the water that you mentioned, the chemicals. And all of these things to me, you know, I don't know which is more important at any one given time. These are all important things. So overall, what my concern is, you know, what's causing all this pollution that's happening around us? The big three sensory: light, sound, air, water, you know, the dirt we walk on, everything, it's all affected. It's all interdependent and interwoven. So I'm concerned in general about overdevelopment here in not just Smithfield, but Monroe County. I moved here for peace and quiet and clean air and water and green and, you know, all the amenities that we enjoy being Pocono residents. Sometimes I look around and I see the threat of it disappearing to warehouses, the giant warehouses you see when you drive down the Lehigh Valley. You know, they make me sick. Or just, I don't want to talk too long here. I'll cut this off in a second. But just recently, I got.
You don't have your thing up, so.
Oh, okay. Just recently, I got around to visiting, Big Pocono Park, the one around, Camelback, right? And you get spectacular views up there if you're lucky to have a day without, pollution, you know, haze, so you can see. And from up there, I said, oh, look, there's lakes over there. Isn't that wonderful? And somebody said, no, you're not looking at lakes there. Those are warehouses. You're looking at warehouses and they look like lakes to me. Now, that's pretty sad. Think of all that acreage is taken up by buildings. And what's happening to the water that's supposed to go straight to the ground, it's gotta go off those roofs and the trucks that go through those neighborhoods, you know, the pollution that the trucks bring, the noise, okay. Have I said enough just by pointing these examples? That's my concern here, folks, the overall impact on the environment of overdevelopment.
Can I just make a comment? One of the key points that I found most interesting in the comprehensive plan, which we have not updated since 2001, is that the people in Smithfield Township, when they were surveyed and when the committee worked on that, it was to maintain the rural character of Smithfield Township. And because that plan is not used, it doesn't have to be used legally to control what decisions are made. But because it's not being used as a guide, we are really overdeveloping. And we're not striving to maintain the rural character. And there would be arguments that would say we are, right? There are counter arguments to that, but that is a.
Well, there's always a tension between development and jobs and that sort of thing, and the whole residential thing. I want to say, yes, sir.
How do you get off, yeah?
Oh, my goodness.
And neither.
Neither did Pat, no, I just want to say, so two points only.
No, I,
One is that, Eric said you can't tell people what to do. Sometimes you can.
Yeah.
But a lot of things you can't. So you're right. There's lots of things you can't tell people what they can and can't do. There's some things you can through ordinances. But that gets me to my next point, which is, but honestly, the one thing that I hope this group avoids is things that, for which you either don't have the authority to control, or there is already another authority that is overseeing that. And I mean, a good example is I had the pleasure of going up to Wilkes-Barre and sitting through a 3-hour meeting with the Department of Environmental Protection with our sewer authority who is looking at doing a plan. And I'll tell you, I mean, they have a building full of professionals that are doing this. And why? Because it's mandated by federal law. the federal law is protecting those water sources. I'm not saying we shouldn't be looking at water sources and protecting them, but we also need to be aware of some of the authorities and some of the work that is being done already and not wasting our time with things that are already strictly regulated. And we talk about that all the time in the planning commission, or we were, like, why are we putting in all these regulations on what someone can do when they're already required to stick to those requirements to have a license or to do whatever, or, yeah, that's all I'll say.
Well, I think that speaks to part of the process that we need to decide as a group that we're gonna have, and I think one of them is that, are we the proper, group? Even to talk on this, I think educationally, it's a lot different
Correct.
than trying to take action to change something. But, yeah, you make an excellent point. We should not, we don't have the resources, number one, to try to take on something that's already being taken care of. Alex, did you have something to say? Did you have your hand up? No?
I was gonna comment a little, I would, yeah,
Well, can I just say something first? I think you guys were great. I mean, I didn't say anything. I mean, I just said general, that I don't think we educate that we don't have a way to get input from our public. So that was my concern.
Okay.
But gosh, I'm really impressed with the thought processes that you all have put into this, and the fact that there's a different kind of twist to everyone's concern, and that is what environment's all about. I mean, everybody sees the environment differently, and it has a lot to do with who you are as, what was that saying? Who you are is what you were then. There was a book or something about that. So anyway, I just wanted to say thank you very much, and what a great job I think everybody did, and I'm sure Eric did, does too.
I like it.
I don't think
We can switch.
yeah, I agree, Pat, it was a good one, and probably, you know, that'd be a great segue to move on to the next one.
Okay, well, what I think we should kind of pat ourselves on the back for that part. And then,
What are we gonna do with all this information that we?
Well, that's-
discussed?
that's the next question. I think after we get a summary that'll come with the minutes, that my suggestion is that we talk about that. But that comes back to your point, which is, let's decide what we want to do. I mean, what are the products? I always think about products. What are the products that we want to produce and think can be useful for the various audiences we have? You know, we have lots of audiences. We have the supervisors, we have folks, we have developers, we have builders. You know, there are all kinds of folks that have different views on what the environment is and what ought to be regulated or not regulated. So it's not a simple task. Eric, you wanted to say.
So I think I would recommend putting this subject to rest for this meeting. I will compile everything you have all said, and I will come back with that list to your next meeting, so you can continue the discussion, because as this was originally recommended by Mitch, and I agree that this is part of your powers and should be discussed again, but I think that at this point, we probably.
Okay, motion to table. Motion to table until the next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Alright.
And I don't think it's really tabling it, you know, I.
Oh, you're tabling it, we're done with it.
Yeah,
If I'm not closing the
Yes.
conversation, we're
Yeah.
tabling it until next time.
great. Okay, the next item is Alan.
And Arnold, do you want to make a comment?
Very brief comment. Listening to this meeting, I'm very impressed with your organization. And having someone who's involved in the organization with many different councils, you can really help guide us with efficiency. I appreciate that.
Are you complimenting our?
Yeah, it's got a copy.
It's true. Okay, we shall.
No, it's good. There we go.
The Penn Argo tour, I was approached by the executive director of the county, waste authority. Very, very smart and energetic, gentleman who I, met with, previously this year. And he asked, please, talk to your environmental advisory council and see when a number of them can get together at 9 AM in the morning at some point, and I'll help you arrange a tour of the waste management facility down in Penn Argo, which is where a lot of our waste that we produce here as humans end up for processing. And so I want to ask all of you here tonight, when generally at 9 AM over the next 90 days, you could commit to going, like maybe a couple of days. Is there a day during the week, like a Monday through a Friday at 9 AM that works for most of you? We're not gonna probably get everybody, but if we can get a specific day of the week that works, I can speak with the waste authority and set something up. This would be free, you know what I mean? Like you would just show up and there would be a bus that brings you around the facility. And I think you will all find it very insightful as to.
Do you have one of those calendar things that you could send to us?
Like a survey, I can send, we can create like
No, just do a doodle.
that's exactly,
Yeah.
doodle. I can do that.
It's, since you've already know that it's a 9 AM,
Yeah,
it should be pretty easy.
okay, that's what I'll do. That'll be one of my
Can
actions.
I just recommend that you move it out at least until mid-October onward?
Absolutely.
Okay. Because I would not go any 9 AM until mid-October.
Clarification.
How is this different during this waste management facility from the discussion we had about touring the sewage treatment facility?
I mean,
How different facility?
it's completely separate in almost every way.
But it's the same type of facility.
It's a completely different facility. Waste is where the trash goes and how it's processed.
It's a gigantic dump.
It's a
I've been
land.
there. I've seen it myself. It's a mountain
Landfill
of
versus
trash.
Did
shoot.
you contribute to it?
I did.
Okay.
We all do.
So it's different, I get it.
It is different. It is very much different.
Okay, you're gonna send us whatever that thing is. and-
Yep, and everyone will get that and please complete it and we'll aim for some time between mid-October and the end of the year.
Stuff.
Okay. Did we just, that's the environmental quality complaint? No,
No,
that's what you told me. Everybody was against.
well, no, well, okay, I think we're talking about two completely different things. So the environmental complaint form is what we discussed at your last meeting.
Yes.
And you all asked me to draft up a letter of recommendation to the board of supervisors,
Yes.
which I did. And now I'm providing it to all of you to approve or edit if you like it. And I'm also giving you a copy of a new policy that we are recommending to the board. Now, the township did put this on their website already, so
What is it?
the environmental complaint form.
Oh,
It's already up, it's already up.
Already up?
sorry.
So you don't need to do anything else.
Well, you don't, well, you don't have to send this letter that I drafted, but it might be nice. But I didn't want to send the letter before running it by all of you, is really the point of this. It's
Do you think we should send the letter?
Maybe to say thank you for putting it up. We agree that it's out there, trust it.
Okay.
Yes. It's already done. It's already done, right?
It's up to you. I mean, if the board has already adopted this policy and it's moving forward, then, you know, we
Well,
can.
the board adopted a policy to allow complaint forms where the township members can reach out if they're concerned about something. Whether or not something happens from it, or whether or not it means it gets referred to the proper authorities like the DEP, or depending on who it is, that's a different issue. We're not confirming that the township's gonna act on every single thing, because it might not be in the township's jurisdiction.
Correct. Correct, yep. It's also part of, it was MS4, and the letter is kind of self-explanatory, it basically says, these are the types of issues that are most consistent with the illicit discharge detection and reporting requirements mandated by MS4. So this helps the community in a lot of ways, and so, you know,
Well,
somebody
you're
comes.
asking for input from that, you're gonna.
Yeah,
You have your question.
So, is there a QR code on it? That was one of the recommendations we had made.
No, the QR code didn't make it to the final cut, but we did add email address.
Right, I saw that. And why doesn't the township accept anonymous complaints?
That is a question.
I get that, but why doesn't the township accept?
Michael, the township also recently adopted a new general complaint form for zoning violations, so these two things, complaint forms go kind of hand in hand.
Yeah, it was a way of formalizing, the complaint mechanism, which was
Right.
fantastic.
I think it's very important.
I think there's a legal reason for it. I do know that they're not, whoever, the anonymity of that person, that stuff is things that get blacked out in, right to know. Redacted, thank you. So I believe it's, there's a reason for it. I know Julia's talked about it. It might not be a legal reason. It might be a follow-up reason.
It is, I think she said, in case a lawsuit results
Right.
from that, they need to know as potential.
Potential witness, yeah. But they are redacted in right to know.
And it also helps prevent, what do you call it, complaints, nuisance complaints, you know, that are really unfounded, you know, harassment.
Yeah,
Personal
It
vendettas.
it makes a person, you know, stand up, you know, behind your name.
So how do we promote this? It's on the
Will it be on the
website. How do
website?
we get people to use it?
it is on the website and the.
Can I make a motion, sorry, can I make a motion that Alex edits the letter slightly and to highlight that there's recognition that it's already on the website and the EAC approves of this action being taken.
Encourages this kind of thing.
Yeah, and well, it's already done, so just.
I'll second that.
It's a fait accompli.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? I'm sorry, let's ask that to you then.
So my question is, how do we promote this?
I heard you. How do we promote it?
That is a question I can ask.
I think the only thing that we can do right now is put it on the website. I think we can all individually promote it.
Well, why don't we use the trick or trunk thing?
There you go.
That's a good
Create
idea.
a trunk with a QR code.
I mean,
Are you volunteering?
you know, Pat, you can have a whole trunk full of these things.
Okay, if you'll carry it.
It's October 26th,
Create your own
yeah.
QR and they can take a picture of it.
Also, I suggested to get involved, tab on the website.
Yes, I think that was
Come
good.
right in and get involved, and this could go in.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, you talked to the supervisors about that.
Oh, yes.
So I'm not sure what their response to you was.
I think he was exploring doing it.
Yeah, okay.
But not many ways besides come to meetings. I mean, that's the main way. Show up and have your voice heard.
So at
Because he's the
the,
only one that got that.
on the 26th, we'll have to set up a booth and have people there to answer questions. That sounds like a lot of work.
A trunk, so you just have to drive here with a car with an empty trunk with candy in it. Open the trunk, wear a costume.
Okay. Bring a flower costume with butterscotch.
Please make sure it's environmentally sensitive candy.
Can you have a car that just has a,
No high fructose corn syrup.
door that comes up, will that work?
Any vehicle, if you go to the website, there's a form you fill out and you register your vehicle so that we know what you're bringing, what type of car it is, you know what I mean?
Well, you guys let me know if anybody really wants to do this. I'm happy to do it, to get my car over here. But,
I'm trying to get my ear trailer here for the event, by the way.
That is,
I'm not in town that weekend, so we'll see.
I will be cooking too, as I understand.
So you need help permit if you're gonna do that.
what kind of cooking? What are you cooking?
We have free food. Meats, chips.
Vegetarian?
You do need it, by the way, a permit to operate food.
Unattended beer.
Well, there goes that idea.
Okay, so,
Someone will be cooking.
new business,
Wow, okay.
Alice. Sir?
No, I was just gonna ask, can we,
You
limited conversation.
you did not address the status of the action item. I hate to sound like a broken record.
it's gonna do it. I was just gonna ask, can we, in the interest of time, are we gonna try to end this meeting by 9 o'clock? Please.
Well, I think we're almost finished.
Okay, good, just wanna make, just keeping in mind in case these conversations go.
That,
But Pat, he's right, we did say that we're gonna
yes,
get an update
you're absolutely
from,
right. Want to do it?
from Eric / Alex.
Briefly.
Slash Alan.
Change.
Okay. Okay, so I'm just going through my action list here. So we actually accomplished pretty much everything on the action item. I did make an inquiry with the County Planning Commission on the official map discussion with regards to whether or not the environmentally sensitive areas index could be in the same conversation as the official map, or whether or not it'd be separate. I haven't heard back from them. So I did ask, haven't heard back. The lighting ordinance recommendation was sent to the board of supervisors. The board of supervisors deliberated on it, the planning commission deliberated on it. The township engineer reviewed it. The township solicitor has provided us with some guidance, so it is slowly moving forward. We're working on sending it to the county planning commission for an informal review. And so the lighting ordinance is progressing in a positive direction. And hopefully there will be some further discussion once we get feedback from the planning commission and everything is
Did
ready to
we
go.
write a letter that we endorsed it?
You wrote a letter of support
Support, yeah,
with some detail on why you supported it.
yeah.
And the only other thing
I
was
remember seeing that.
the only other thing was the letter that you just approved. I put that together. So that's pretty much all I had.
Now, is there something you think that's missing, sir? Okay,
I guess I would,
It's a good thing to do, if we get feedback.
yes, it is, thank you, it's a very good thing.
the comprehensive plan. I talked to the township about the comprehensive plan. It was discovered that funding exists to update the comprehensive plan. We reached out to Middle Smithfield Township. How did you update your comprehensive plan? And they indicated that the county reviewed their plan and indicated only a minor, they didn't have to redo the entire thing. They only had to do an update. And so we reached out to the county and said, could you look at our comprehensive plan? And the county said, yes, we can take a look at it. And at this point, we haven't heard back from them. So the township is making inquiries and we're, the township's taking it seriously. I'll continue to try to talk to the township about that and see what's available, but so that's a satisfactory update for you.
Thank you.
Okay, now, I think these other items under new business are just brief, aren't they? What's the tutorial?
Well, do you want to talk about the next agenda item, the county hazard mitigation?
Okay, that's just,
So the township asked me to provide this to everybody here. It is a survey. Does everyone know how to use QR codes? So basically, you take your phone out and you go to the camera, right? And then you aim the camera at the code there and a little yellow button will pop up and you click on it, right? And then you go to a survey and we're asking you all to fill out the survey
Okay.
for the county hazard mitigation feedback. It's pretty important. The township has been going to a lot of these meetings. They've helped craft the survey. A lot of time and effort has gone into this and we respectfully request everyone fill it out. It's self-explanatory. I don't need to go into what you need to fill out. I just respectfully request everyone.
I'm gonna go to my neighbor's house and let him help me do it.
If you don't wanna use QR code, there's a link right below, you can just type that in and do your thing, it does the exact same thing.
Does the same thing.
How long does it take?
It probably would take at most, well, it depends on how much detail you want to provide. It's sort of asking, there's a lot of options for very detailed responses. And so they seem very interested. I spoke to Mary Ellen Keegan at the West End Fair a couple of weeks ago. And she indicated that she's very enthusiastic about community input. She's great, very knowledgeable. So highly recommend you all take an opportunity to fill it out over the next 2
So
weeks.
that's an action.
It is time sensitive. this is time sensitive, like this will expire at some point, so the sooner that you can take the survey, the better. I would recommend sometime over the next 2 weeks. That's pretty much it.
Okay, you just use your iPhone, right?
You can use any device that has access to a camera and the internet simultaneously.
Okay. Okay, the tutorial on the developer project page?
Yep, this has come up in a lot of meetings, this won't take more than 5 minutes, but I would be remiss if I didn't offer everyone a tutorial on how to find out about all these land development plans and sketch plans that are submitted to the township.
Oh,
So that screen there is where you'll be directing your attention for the next 5 minutes. So I'm gonna sit here because so basically, if you go to the township, so I'm gonna share my screen here. And then we're gonna go to this. Okay, so you go to the homepage of the website. That's the trunk or treat page here, right? So you can click on that. And you can, I better refresh here, so I can actually click on things. So anyway, you want to find out what land development plans, subdivisions, or ordinances are underway here in the township. You go, this is what you see when you pop up on the homepage. You see there's home, boards and commissions, departments, news and events, MS4, and resources. The resources tab is the meat and potatoes of this website. So you go to resources and then go down to open developer projects, and then you click on that. Okay, and then this will pop up. Open developer projects is a separate page, and then you go down to open developer projects, and there's an explanation that's very well said. It says with public interest at an all-time high, it's immensely important for the public to access public materials without filing a right to know request. Below are links to pages with public hearing documents, subdivision and land development applications that have been submitted to the township for consideration. And then you go down here and you can see all of the open projects that currently have been submitted and then the ones that have been closed. So if you want to find out what happened with the Orchard BJK petition to change zoning, why was it denied? What happened to the minute, like you can kind of go back in the archives, the zoning change for the airport, that some of you may recall. Over here on the open projects, you can see things like the 3 Point Garden Estates, which has been given considerable discussion and public interest lately. And then Smithfield Gateway, let's do the Riley zoning change since that's on your agenda. So this is a request that was submitted to the township. And you can read a little bit about what it is. So basically, it's an 88.9 acre parcel that is currently zoned residential conservation, and it's being requested from the township to rezone it to economic development, along with a zoning map change. And then you have the exact location, the parcel ID number, who it's owned by. So you can find out precisely what property it is in question. And then if you scroll down, you can see the application for petition. So let's click on that, and you'll actually see the actual application that was submitted with handwritten notes and everything. You can see exactly what's being asked of the township. Okay, and then that's a PDF, right? Just move this. Then you can go back. What else can you see? Well, let's take a look at the zoning officer comment letter. This is what Ken, your zoning officer, commented on. And he said, basically, I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but you should all read his comments. And then you can look down at what exactly is being proposed, and this is in your packet. And then you can see, oh, there is the zoning changes being requested. This is where it's located at. See, so it's very detailed, very good information all at your fingertip. And then let's go back to the 3 Point Garden Estates, or actually maybe we'll do, I think it was this one here, 637 bridge. That's the one with the Buttermilk Falls on it. Scroll down, same thing. And then I think it's sketch plan set 2, and you can actually see what was submitted. See, this is Buttermilk Falls, and you can see what they sketched, and you can see that they're proposing the possibility of a new alignment of that intersection. And then you can go back and look at sketch plan set 1. This is where they show the 3 parcels. So you can see Buttermilk Falls, you can see the portion of the parcel where they had the sketch on it. And there's that little creek that runs through the property that was a point of some considerable discussion in the planning commission meeting. So all of this information is at your fingertips on this open developer page. Now let's take a look at 3 Point Garden. I'm just going to do this real quick. But basically you go down You know, and when you start to see the land development and subdivision plans, I will comment that you're gonna see you're gonna want, there's a lot of information here. What would I focus on if I'm really trying to figure out what exactly is going on? You wanna look at the plan, first of all, what exactly, like a sketch of, see, now you can really see visually what's being proposed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lots on this property that are being proposed, right, in this subdivision. And the other one is the engineering review letters, and then the applicant's response to the engineering review. And that's where the meat and potatoes of these land development plans and these subdivisions are. That's what the planning commission spends a lot of time going over. And so you can actually see, download, you can see the very document that was submitted to the township from their engineer. It's so big, it's taking all its time to load. I think there's 98 comments on it. So it's gonna be an interesting discussion when they come back to the township.
But they tabled it, right?
Yes, the table, but, you know, this is, I'm just trying to show you as soon as we get a response from the applicant, it's gonna be down here in the applicant's, let's see, supplement, third party submissions. So I believe it'll be up here. It'll be, applicant's response to engineer review letter number 1, and then the township engineer will respond to the applicant's response. So you'll see a series of these pop up as we get that. So it's sort of like a little bit of a soap opera. You have to follow each episode as it goes along. And it's good to start early. This is a good time to start because the applicant hasn't responded yet. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you all. So that moving forward, if there's any questions about what's going on at the planning commission meeting, you can't make the planning commission meeting because maybe you don't want to watch the 2-hour YouTube video. You can simply follow along, and the township is very timely about uploading documents as they get submitted. So you can follow along and you won't miss a single episode if you do it this way.
I forgot, where do you go first?
You go
What's that?
top, right, this here, you're targeting at the homepage, right? So you see boards and commissions, you go down and look at boards and commissions, you can even see yourselves here. Right, go to the environmental advisory council page and scroll down, and there you all are on the left. We have your names, your terms, their expiration dates. And then in a description, the environmental advisory council, and you keep scrolling down, you have minutes. So if you miss a meeting and you want to click on the minutes, you click on that circular item and the minutes pop up, right? They're all your minutes, and your agendas also have the same, right? So everything here is at your fingertips. And then the only other thing I guess I'll show you since it was brought up is the ordinances. The sign ordinance, right? So you go to resources again. This is also where you find the current ordinances, but if you want to look at ordinances the township is pursuing, you go down to open township projects, right? You guys following along?
Yeah.
And then you scroll down and you can see what the supervisors are working on. They're working on a light nuisance ordinance, the noise ordinance is still being revised a bit. There's the River's Edge Bike Park master site plan, which they meet tomorrow at 6 p.m. here. Rename the creek, which has been really stimulating. And then there's the sign ordinance update. And if you scroll down to the sign ordinance update, you draft ordinance 9/16/24, right? Printer friendly, no comments. So you just go ahead and then you have the whole sign ordinance that you can review in anticipation for the meeting on the 17th. So I'm gonna go ahead and end that.
I have a question.
For
In any of this,
Alex, right?
pardon?
For
Yes. In any of this, especially like the projects and things, is there a place where you collect public comments? And if not, why shouldn't we have that?
It'll be it'd be on the meeting minutes for the planning commission. So you have to go to the.
If somebody doesn't want to go to the meeting or just has a comment or a question, why wouldn't you collect those?
Never been on Facebook before, that's why.
Sorry.
That is a policy call by the township.
No way.
That is 100% a policy call by the township. Yeah. But that was like
You got a dead link.
no.
When you say that.
I mean, there could be in the get involved section. And that goes to Facebook.
Sorry, there actually, I mean, yeah, there's lots of comments, just go to Smithfield Township Facebook page. Tons of comments there, or Middle Smithfield, Smithfield and so yeah. That's a nice place for hate mail.
Okay, this,
Or it's true.
the other item you already talked about, yeah.
This item, I talked to the township about this today, asked about so the planning commission, again, I think three of you were there.
Yeah,
This was discussed at length, and the planning commission asked for more time to review it, so the township will be, I guess, trying to see if that's possible this week. So, right now, this is information only, I guess, for you guys here. I don't think you need to make. And you can discuss it here tonight, and I think, I mean, it's up to the township.
well, I don't think we really have had enough information to really look at it, to really study it. Huh?
There are environmental concerns.
Yeah, there are, and I did raise that there were environmental
Is there a clock on this?
And he said,
That's the township's talking to the applicant, and I
I
don't.
don't know if there's a clock on a zoning change, I don't think there is.
I believe there is, Michael.
Oh, there is?
And I believe a hearing was set for the 8th of October, and the township's in discussion on that date and possibly changing it
Could
to.
you briefly just say why this is being requested?
It's being, any landowner can approach the supervisors and
I
ask.
mean, the landowner should have, this is what the reason is I'm requesting it, this is what is the benefit to me, this is what the benefit is to the township.
Yeah.
Does it comply with the comprehensive plan, or does it violate it? What's the risk?
The Monroe County Planning Commission will, to the comprehensive plan, will comments on whether it's in line with the Monroe County comprehensive plan.
The county planning
That's
commission,
required, that
Yeah.
letter, whether it does or doesn't, that's a requirement in the Monroe County Planning Commission letter. They'll state whether it's in compliance or non-compliance with the comprehensive plan of the county.
I did mention to the presenter that this group certainly had an interest in the environmental issues, and his answer was his wife was an environmental something or other. I can't remember, what was the title she had, environmental lawyer or, anyway, I don't know.
Does he have any reason that he wants to do this? Other
He
than
wants to develop it.
Well,
he's a developer.
I'm sure he wants to do something with it.
he,
He wants to have a regenerative farm and promote agritourism. And so
I don't know.
that's what he,
and he wants to, that have a marketplace there and a restaurant there and
like a wedding venue.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Butcher.
sounded like this is very
Some meat.
close to the property that James
Braised
was
meat.
discussing,
eggs,
Some of those
Last
things you
meeting.
can do already.
especially chickens.
right?
But the planning commission
Again.
also told him that
he
the
said.
zoning change was that's a big ask.
Yes.
And
Right. That's to do.
told them
Yes, you
to
wanna put in,
rethink what they were doing.
Point of order, folks, we have
sorry.
Yeah,
a member of
sorry.
public. No, please continue.
No, I wasn't called on, so that was my.
No, I do want to open it up to public comment now, please.
So when he spoke to the planning commission last week, they advised him that that was a very big ask and that they did not think that that was the appropriate route to take. And I believe they talked about not having that meeting on the 8th, not having it on the agenda on the 8th, because they wanted him to go back to drawing board. Didn't they talk about maybe it being a conditional use?
Yeah, and they,
Because if they change the zoning ordinance, what happens if in 20 years they
Oh,
go
right, that
bust?
was the big.
Yeah.
And now it's stuck with the new,
And that's what
District.
that's what the supervisors will look at. So when you say like, I say this all the time. In some ways, I might care what the things you just said about like, what will be the advantage of having a BED and all these things. But in some ways, when someone tells me what they're planning on doing, I almost want to put up blinders because it doesn't matter. Because that action is just changing the zone. They can then turn around right away and do whatever they want that is allowed in the ED zone. So you have to be careful, like, oh my gosh, this sounds great, I want this. and you change the zoning, then they turn around and do something else. You have to just be aware of that. You can't condition a zoning change on what they're proposing that they're going to do.
That certainly came out from the comments of the planning.
It was
Yeah,
suggested
and-
that they apply to the state because it's, falls under that jurisdiction.
Apply to the state.
Yeah, because they wanna turn it in, they wanna go into agriculture.
Oh, well, and if you're a farm, there's certain things that you're
They
allowed to
wanted
do
to
by
turn
right.
it into, they wanted to go in from residential into kind of an agriculture slash venue of some kind. And the regenerative,
Right, but
farming. They
We have
wanted,
an
they
expert on
talked about, free range cows, things of that nature, and it butts up against Mount Nebo, Mount
Right.
Nebo Park, which would be.
Well, there's certain rights that you have that related to agricultural lands. I'd have to look, I don't know.
We have a public comment.
yeah, Robert was at that meeting and he looked at the ordinance right down at the zoning and he said that agriculture is allowed in that zone. And I think the applicant was concerned because he's gonna have greenhouses and he thought that was an industrial use, but you can have high tunnels and hoop houses and greenhouses on a farm. And so I think that's where
You
he
just
had some
can't convert
confusion.
it, so like you can sell honey, but you can't sell cornflakes that, you know, so like.
Right, right.
You can't process.
You can't
Right,
process
and
that.
so, yeah, so I think he kind of had a misinterpretation, or he was led to misinterpreting that, and so that's, I think, Scott was trying to lead him toward, go ahead and do your ag
Yeah.
things.
Just from my
And,
understanding,
yeah.
alright. All of the things that he wants to do,
Yeah.
probably can do. With limitations, but.
I have to apply for conditional use to do certain things that are allowed by conditional use and are.
Right.
And
All
that's
that's to
what
say-
Scott recommended.
So I suspect this will not fall on.
Well, I have a question.
Withdrawing, or the supervisor will just say no.
Right.
So we'll change.
Scott's no dummy.
Isn't this very close to or the same property that you discussed at the last meeting, James? With the creek coming down through it, off of,
You're talking about, the one on Mount Nebo?
yes,
No, it's not the same thing. This is entirely different. This one is off 209,
right,
where they have that,
and butts up to Mount Nebo.
right.
We're on the other side of it.
Right, with the sign, before this, okay.
Okay, any other business we need to discuss? If not, I'll entertain, did I give enough, please?
I just, back in the announcements, I noticed that pick up the Poconos wasn't mentioned, and I think that's this Saturday, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can answer it if you guys want. We reached out to the township reached out to the visitors bureau, and they indicated that they aren't organizing one this year. Township can still do one, but it's not like it was previously,
They're
so.
gonna focus on business bureau, business initiative.
Right.
Any other public comment?
Wait, I got a question on that. Does that mean the township made a decision to not do anyone, or do you know?
I don't believe the township is doing one.
It was on the calendar, like, for the week before.
The township asked me to take that off.
Okay. Got it. I guess nobody signed up.
Other comments?
One other comment, as we're coming into focus, our EAC, we need to have increased the talk between the various parts of the township government so that we're all aware that the EAC doesn't necessarily isn't recognized as an entity as a viable entity by some other, or less of a viable entity than some of the other departments. And we need to up our profile, and talk with the other, so they know that we're in the mix and they will consider asking us for our opinion while they're doing their processes, their
I
decision.
think they're supposed to be on the agenda as a standing item, solicitor. It
Well, it was once,
was once, so
but
there's
it
probably
wasn't
some
the last time.
probably just an oversight. I think today's my deadline, I'll just write right now. Please make sure EAC
Okay, and they,
Can I ask you all a question? Did you find that helped the tutorial on the website?
that was great, thank you very much, it was good to have.
The presenter is awesome.
He acted like he knew what he was doing, if I got his name right, he would like it better.
He's a good actor.
That being said, can I make a motion?
You know,
Yes.
we had names.
You can't make that motion.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Which second? All in favor? Aye. You're gone. Now, what?
It would be 9 o'clock.
I'll be the same, cut the shorts and the speakers.